Good evening, everyone. This is your teacher and fellow student, Heidi, and of course, Rhonda's over there behind the camera still today. But we're going to start working on either for this video or another, something where we can start having the having us in Windows or having the information we want to share in Windows. Brief recap, I was a teacher for 26 years. Rhonda worked in IT, and this came about because we were wondering what we could do in light of the current situations, especially in our country, but around the world. And we didn't know what we could do. So we started with some education. We put together what we would love to be able to study at a doctorate level if we could afford to do so. We cannot. And so we put together a program that we wanted to do. And part of doing it at the level that we would like to do it is sharing it with other people. So right now we're doing a series of things that are introducing topics at roughly high school baccalaureate type level of discourse. And it's just going to keep getting more specialized, more interesting, deeper, and higher levels of thought. So today, since we've been working on governments and systems, focusing in a bit on our own country, we're going to be talking about rights. We're going to talk about the rights that we're guaranteed in this country, and then we're also going to talk briefly about rights guaranteed by the states. Then there's going to be the final video of this introductory series, which is going to be talking about countries around the world and the rights. And we've done work on ranking the various countries on, I think, 7 different areas that we'll talk about briefly. Not every country. There are a lot of countries, 195 or something. So we're not going to specifically talk about everything. But the documents will be in the description, and it will be easy for you to go and look up whatever things you want to look up. And anybody who wants to follow us in here, one of the things that we'll be encouraging is that they pick a particular country, for example, when they get to this area, and follow it through in depth, the way that we're going to be doing overall with this country. Okay, so we're going to start with the preamble to the Constitution. I had to memorize that when I was in 8th grade. Rhonda said she did not have to memorize that, or maybe it was 5th grade. It was 5th grade. That is when I had to memorize. That's right. We had a teacher that was super into memorizing and drawing accurately. Yeah, I wasn't all that great at either of those things, really. So the preamble to the Constitution. Preamble, walking through the beginning, or the walk through before the thing starts, is the preamble. So the preamble to the Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish the Constitution for the United States of America. So, just like I went over the Pledge of Allegiance with kids before I let them recite it in a rote type of manner, we need to unpack this a little bit before we move along. So what is this about? It's written in the name of we the people. Bear in mind, again, this was written for the white landed gentlemen. So when they say we the people, they are particularly talking about white landed gentlemen, men of means, men with property, and maybe not Christians, but let's just say that most of the people who would have gotten involved in this from here forward probably often were Christian or would have agreed to Christian ideals. I'm not going to say that we weren't influenced in this country, because we were. We just didn't follow all of the edicts, only the ones that were convenient. Or maybe I should say that some people were forced to follow them while other people did what they wanted to do. All along, always, probably from way back when. In any case, we the people of the United States. So at this point, remember that this was the second Constitution. So when they're saying of the United States, we have already established that part. We've already declared our independence. We've already fought for the wars and have settled. And we have already found one government system didn't work the way that we wanted it to. And this is the second one. So we are the United States in order to form a more perfect union. In other words, what we're going to put down here is better than the last attempt. That's all they're really claiming here. Establish justice. So essentially the Constitution is to set up a justice system. Ensure domestic tranquility. Establish the rules that will give us a decent life around here. Provide for the common defense. Establish the military and make sure that all of us together are united and powerful enough to ward off things like the War of 1812. Promote the general welfare. I think they've forgotten that one recently, but promote the general welfare means doing what's best for like all of us in general. Secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. In other words, find more and more ways to be free for ourselves and our children and the generations that follow. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Is that pretty self-evident, that last little bit?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I wasn't sure of how to paraphrase that one. Then there's Article 1 of the Constitution, which is all about Congress. All the things that they get to do, all the powers therein. Article 2 of the Constitution is the executive power, focused and concentrated in one person, because what they found in the first Constitution that didn't have such a thing is that it was hard to decide who got to make the final decision. So here they kind of have that final decision maker, the face, the negotiator, the diplomat. How come that raises a little bile these days? Okay, so all of that and the rights and powers contained therein. And Article 3 does indeed establish the justice system and talks about things like treason. So it's actually giving that judicial system some teeth and some, not so much teeth, I guess, but some markings, some markings to tell them which way they want them to lean as they're interpreting things, I guess. Treason, like they specifically define treason because that was what they considered to be one of the more serious crimes possible, I believe. I am not a constitutional scholar. Okay, so then there's that's Article 3. Article 4 of the Constitution is talking about the states and basically saying that the things that are not given to the president, the Congress, the judicial system are reserved for the states or the people. And it talks about the states and the distinctions and the fact that states have their independence. I think it might be in there. I didn't happen to notice right now where it also talks about the supremacy clause, where if there's a conflict, the federal wins. Now, that's the federalist system right there, just while we're on it. That's what federalism is all about, is the states having their realms and the federal system having their realms, and they complement one another as opposed to too much overlap. Article 5 is talking about amendments and how we do that to the Constitution because it's a work in progress. Article 6 is talking about debts and engagements entered into being valid, treaties, things like that, who has what to do with it. Article 7 talks about the ratification of the Constitution. And then we get to the part we're supposed to be talking about right now, the Bill of Rights. What rights do we have as citizens of the United States of America that are part of our Constitution? Yes, they were amendments, but an amendment isn't the same thing as an appendix. An amendment's part of the document, whereas an appendix lags on the end. Our amendments. The First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Now, note, all of this has to do with the government. It has nothing to do with the way I treat someone else. That's a separate whole code of ethics and of law. So what it says is this: the government itself doesn't get to recognize a state religion. It doesn't get to tell us we have to be religious or do this particular religion or do things based upon their religion. They can't prohibit free exercise of religion. So if whatever it is that defines a religion, and of course that's where they probably get you, whatever defines a religion, they have to recognize yours. They're not allowed to abridge the freedom of speech. They don't give you freedom of speech. They don't make space for your freedom of speech. They just can't shut you up. Or of the press, same thing. Anything we want to write and distribute and share with one another, if we want to share these opinions in writing or verbally, we get to. we get to have people there representing us, looking around and giving us the news. That's how it's been interpreted heretofore. Hopefully, it stays that way. The right of the people peaceably to assemble. We're allowed to gather in pretty much any numbers we want, witness football games and concerts, or marches on the street or pride parades. We're allowed to do that as long as it's peaceful. Interestingly enough, now it says the people peaceably to assemble. So I don't know if they come along and create problems, if that's not peaceable. We're being peaceable. I just look for where they're going to argue with us,
Right.
Where they're going to, yeah. And to petition the government for a redress of grievances. In other words, we are allowed to tell the government they're messing up, and we're allowed to ask them to hear us and allowed to ask them to fix it. And they can't tell us we're wrong because we point out his mental disturbances or his health or that he's making a mess of things or that what he's doing is not legal. We get to say all of that. And that's just one amendment. We have those rights. We have the right to talk. We have the right to write. We have the right to share information. We have the right to worship. We have the right to talk about worshiping. And we have the right to get together and talk about worshiping or not worshiping or disliking or arguing. We get to complain. We get to gather together to complain. All that. Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This one's complicated because if you take off the first two clauses, you get the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, which is, of course, how gun rights advocates tend to want to interpret it. Let's take out the middle clause. A well-regulated militia, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So that doesn't work, not an independent clause. Putting it back in. The well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And depending on how I say those words and where I put the emphasis, I can make it say the first thing and I can make it say that it's only for a militia. So, interpretation. Does a militia have to have, I don't know. It says well-regulated militia is necessary. I think the implication from my point of view is that the people themselves can have a militia. But militia being also capitalized tends to be a state militia or a government militia. So that one's a tough one. Is it against our current government, or is it part of what our government or the state governments get to do against the federal government, or is it something that all governments have against the outside invaders, but it's not the sitting army? I just don't know. Third Amendment. No soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a matter to be prescribed by law. So they can't just take your house and turn it into a military establishment. Fourth Amendment. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. What does that leave? The interpretation of reasonable. No warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, that's more clear, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons and things to be seized. So they've interpreted that to be they have to know who you are, what you've got on you. They have to be able to say, here's my reason for thinking that her purse has this thing in it, and then they can get a warrant to search my purse. But they're supposed to go that far. That's why dropping people on the top of an apartment complex and pulling everybody out into the weather in the middle of the night, half naked, with no warrants isn't okay. For that reason, minimally. Fifth Amendment, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. And nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life nor limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. This whole thing says they can't just come and mess with you. if something real serious, they need to not have one person's point of view. They need to get your neighbors, your peers to say that there's enough evidence to look at you twice. They can't just come into your house and take your stuff, and they can't say, oh, we didn't get you this time. The jury didn't agree. Here, we'll do it again with another jury. Oh, we'll do it again with another jury until they get you. Like what they're trying to kind of do with Letitia James. Yeah. And most importantly, Fifth Amendment, they can't make you confess or answer questions that make you look bad. Probably because they can coerce. And so because they can do that, you don't have to. Something like that. Sixth Amendment. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district where the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law and be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. So you get to have a lawyer. You get to have the witnesses, and if they don't want to come in, the state makes them. You get to face with your witnesses. You get to, they can't just take you, like, say, out of San Francisco where you did something, and if you did it there, you should be tried by San Franciscans instead of dragging you to Texas. Or vice versa. Things would go very differently for you depending on who the quote-unquote peers are. Seventh Amendment. In suits, excuse me. I made it fancy and it's not. In suits at common law where the value in controversy, suits, lawsuits. It's capitalized. So I was like getting all confused and thinking that they were talking about the TV show for some reason, which makes no sense. Suits. I never really dealt with that as the double entendre that it is for that show.
Right?
No, I didn't. In suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of, that maybe needs to be looked at again, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of the common law. So the jury gets to have the final word? Is that what you get out of that? If you're accused of something more than about $20, you get to have a jury, they can't take it away from you, and they can't question the jury.
Yeah.
Eighth Amendment. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. There are going to be some lawsuits coming up, boy. I think Alligator Alcatraz and sending people to El Salvador, I would say that that's cruel and unusual punishment myself.
Yep.
Torture of any sort is cruel and unusual punishment. My eyes are so red. Okay. It was 4:20 when we started this. What do you expect? The Ninth Amendment. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. So just because you got one right doesn't mean they can take away another one. 10th Amendment. The power is not, here's where it is. Well, all right, so I was wrong. The power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states or reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So if it's not given to the feds and it's not prohibited to the states, it belongs to the states or maybe the people. 11th Amendment. The judicial power of the United States shall not be construed to extend to any suit in law or equity commenced or prosecuted against one of the United States by citizens of another state or by citizens or subjects of any foreign state. I had to read that back to my own self. So citizens of California can't go sue Texas. And people from France can't sue Texas. All right. Then I'm not going to read some of this next one's long. I'm not reading it out loud. The 12th Amendment talks about the electors, the Electoral College. So I'm already annoyed by it. 13th Amendment supersedes. 13th Amendment. Hello. Neither slavery, sometimes it's in a different color, so I have to realize what they're doing. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. No slavery until you're convicted. So guess what they've done? and Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. 14th Amendment. This one's super important right now. It's in several sections, so I will be summarizing. Section 1. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens in the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. And that's what says you're born here, you're a citizen. You're naturalized, you're a citizen. No one takes any of it away or any of your rights away. And any person, doesn't say citizen, it says person, has the right to due process and equal protection. Period. In this case, it's in red and white. Section 2 talks about representatives. Section 3 talks about no person gets to hold an office. Oh, yes, the Section 3. That's the one that Colorado said he couldn't be on the ballot, and they put him on anyway. It says basically once you've done something essentially treasonous, once you've been part of an insurrection, once you've given aid and comfort, like pardoning 1,500 people, you can no longer run for office. You are disqualified. The next one talks about debts, and then it talks about enforcement again. 15th Amendment. The rights of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. That doesn't mean you can't take care of minority people. It just means that you can't use someone's skin color to not let them vote. So if you found that something was not letting on the regular people of color vote, then you have to take that away. They're misinterpreting things to say that white people are being victims and that it's wrong. 16th Amendment's talking about taxes and income tax. 17th Amendment deals differently with senators than what's done in Section 2. The 18th Amendment takes away our rights to drink. 19th Amendment gives women the right to vote. 20th Amendment has sections again. It talks about when the term for president ends. It talks about Congress assembling. It's talking about terms of the president, what happens if people die, when things happen, etc. 21st Amendment repeals prohibition. 22nd Amendment talks about no person shall be elected to the office of president more than twice. So it doesn't say right here that you can't be elected vice president if you've been elected president. It doesn't say you can't be in the line of succession. It doesn't say anything like that. But it does say, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of the president more than once. But this article shall not apply to any person holding the office of president when this article was proposed by Congress, and shall not prevent any person who may be holding the office of president or acting as president during the term within which this is talking about Franklin Roosevelt. That they're not ousting him, I guess. And there's nothing else that it says, so there you are. 23rd Amendment. The district constituting the seat of government of the United States shall appoint in such manner as the Congress may direct electors. So let's talk about D.C. having electors for president. Section 2, right. Okay, 24th Amendment. They can't charge you any kind of a tax or poll tax or deny your right to vote because of any kind of a weird tax. And then the next bit of the 25th Amendment is talking about, that was the 24th. The 25th Amendment is talking about succession, removal of president, vice president becomes president, and then the vice president nominates the new president nominates a new vice president. And then it goes on and on and on with that. 26th Amendment, 18-year-olds get the right to vote. And the 27th Amendment, no law varying the compensation for the services of senators and representatives shall take effect until election of representatives shall have intervened. So you can't just vote your own raise. You're voting a raise for the next Congress.
Right.
Well, that's a little bit better, I suppose. Anyway, I probably shouldn't have gone through all of those. It took a long time. But of course, it's the Bill of Rights, the first 10 that are so much so talking about our rights. So now I did a spreadsheet and I talked about rights guaranteed by the Constitution. And then it was so much, even though it's 50, so much and so many different kinds of things. Like there were rules and laws about religion and marriage and all these things. And so sifting through was quite difficult. Laws about bigamy, a lot of that. I imagine once the Mormons came around, a lot of them made laws, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we developed another document. And that's what I want to share. All of these documents are in the description, or actually they're in our library now. So the library is in the description and all the documents are in the library. So I'm just going to give you some highlights from the states, not a whole lot more than this, and we'll stop for this particular video. So here's what we found out. Notable highlights. Nevada. Most inclusive ERA covering race, color, creed, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity expression, age, disability, ancestry, and national origin. Nevada is one of the states guaranteeing civil rights for the most different types of people. Pennsylvania was the first state with a Green Amendment protecting environmental rights in its Bill of Rights. Maine, the first state to guarantee constitutional right to grow, produce, and consume your own food. All 50 states guarantee a right to education, and there's no federal equivalent, but it's in all the states. 49 of the 50 explicitly guarantee a right to vote, and there's no federal equivalent that just all by itself guarantees the right to vote. It's usually saying, well, you can vote for this and vote for that, implying a right to vote. Feds don't guarantee it the way the states do. Well, you know what? I'm going to stop it right here, I think. Oh, I found it. I'm not going to stop it right here. I was having an issue with finding the chart, so I was going to have to... Anyway, I didn't. So here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you if a state has a right to privacy, anything with the environment, gender equality, education, voting rights. Well, I won't do education and voting because we already talked about that. If there's anything specific for workers' rights or health care. If I don't mention it, they don't have it. Alabama, only the two, education and voting. Alaska guarantees a right to privacy and gender equality and a right to some health care. Arizona, privacy rights. Arizona, they all have education. Arkansas, just the basics. California guarantees a right to privacy. California guarantees gender equality. And that's it. Privacy is an inalienable right since 1879 in California. I'll take it. Colorado has gender equality. Connecticut has gender equality. Delaware, the basic two. Florida has a right to privacy. Florida has some workers' rights in its constitution. Georgia, just the basics. Hawaii has a right to privacy. Hawaii has environmental rights, gender equality, and workers' rights. Idaho, the basics. Illinois is like Hawaii, no workers' rights, but everything else. Oh, I suppose Illinois also. Oh, I lied. Illinois has the workers' rights. Hawaii has healthcare rights. Indiana has the basics. Iowa has gender equality. I'm not even going to read them anymore if all they have is the basics. I'm just going to tell you what's interesting. Louisiana has a right to privacy and gender equality. Maryland has gender equality. Massachusetts has environmental and gender equality. Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, basics. Now that surprises me. Montana has right to privacy, environmental Bill of Rights, has gender equality, education, voting rights, workers' rights. Montana's got some of the most rights. Nebraska, not so great. Yeah, Nevada has a lot of people that are covered in the gender equity, but not anything else in here at all. New Hampshire has privacy and gender equity. New Jersey has gender equity. New Mexico has gender equity. New York has a lot of stuff. Environmental rights, gender equity, workers' rights, and guaranteed health care. North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Oregon and Pennsylvania have gender equity. Pennsylvania has some environmental rights. Rhode Island has some environmental rights. South Carolina has some. Tennessee, Texas and Utah have gender equity guarantees. That's nice. Vermont, surprisingly, has nothing extra. Virginia has gender equity. Washington State has gender equity. And also Washington has privacy rights. West Virginia, Wisconsin, Wyoming has some gender rights. Gender equity rights. So here's what I saw running through. Over half the states, about half the states, they do have a guarantee for education and voting, but that's all that the state guarantees. A bunch more did have privacy and gender. Smattering of workers' rights and healthcare, and a few environmentals. So that's what I saw in this. Detailed analysis. Here we go. Last stuff, we're going to end this particular video. I definitely recommend looking here and then looking at your own states. States with constitutional privacy provisions: Alaska, Arizona, California, Florida, Hawaii, Illinois, Louisiana, Montana, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Washington. Environmental rights, green amendments in the Bill of Rights: Pennsylvania, Montana, New York. Other provisions: Hawaii, Illinois, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. Okay, California, get on that one. That's something I might work on because that's ridiculous. We do have then we have ERAs, gender equality and equal rights amendments. States with comprehensive ERAs: Alaska, California, who had the earliest one, Colorado, Connecticut, Hawaii, Illinois, Iowa, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Montana, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Texas, Utah, Virginia, Washington, Wyoming. And Wyoming's had it since 1890.
Wow.
Most recent, most notable, Nevada, the most inclusive one, in New York was expanded to include sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, pregnancy, and reproductive health care. All right, all 50 states guarantee a right to public education. One of the most universal states' rights. Explicit right to vote, 49 states. We said that, just not Arizona. It says it differently and says specific people don't have the right to vote. So I guess they might mean like felons. I don't know. Didn't look.
Right.
And 27 states have constitutional provisions mandating elections be free, equal, or open. Workers' rights: New York, Illinois, Florida, Montana, and Washington. That's it. Health and healthcare: Alaska, Hawaii, North Dakota, and New York. Additional unique things we talked about: Maine, New Mexico, Constitution to vote section to irrigation and water rights. Speech rights and private spaces: California, New Jersey, Oregon, and Massachusetts allow political speech, petitioning, in shopping malls, exceeding federal First Amendment for that kind of speech. Protections beyond federal minimums. There are various things. nothing of a huge significance. And that is what we were able to do about the rights that we have in this country. We have more rights than we're being allowed to entirely exercise, or at least there's the threat over us. And that's why there's the huge worry of rights being taken away. There is no right to vote. That's a guarantee in our federal system. And if we don't get out there and fight for our rights and keep working on trying to expand them, I mean, snooze, you lose. Use it or lose it. Whatever expression you want. But I'm serious. If we do not fight for our rights, they will be diminished. So I'll leave you with that. And the next video that you see is going to be looking at different countries and the rights and different things going on in those countries. I promise that it will be shorter because there's nothing that's going to make me go through 195 plus countries one at a time. See you next time.